Hello everyone, I'm Marcos, and today I'll be taking on the Herculean task of ranking every new horror movie that I've seen in 2025. At the end of 2024, I'd given up any kind of hope of having a successful relationship and decided to focus on painting. Don't worry ladies, you're not missing much. And thus, in January 2025, this channel was born. And if you followed me from the start, you can tell that my videos have improved quite a lot since then. Before I get into my list, I want to make it clear that I'm only ranking the new horror movies that I've seen in 2025. There are a few movies that bend genres a bit, and I decided to use my best judgment on what to include on this list. I've separated my list into a few different categories, and I'll go over them right now. The first category is nah. These aren't necessarily bad movies, they're just movies that didn't spark much interest in me, and I probably wouldn't recommend them and most likely wouldn't watch again. The next category is that's fine. These are movies that I didn't really like, but they had a few interesting qualities. After that we have alright. These movies were engaging, but they had a few issues that held them back from being good. The penultimate category is, I liked that. These are movies that I enjoyed, but they didn't quite stack up to the cream of the crop. They had ideas and visuals that were interesting, and I would consider rewatching these. And finally, the final category of finality is the top 10. Do I even have to explain the top 10? I think we can just get into it. So at number 23, the lowest movie on my list is Shelby Oaks. I feel a little bad that Shelby Oaks is my lowest ranked movies. It's been a punching bag for a lot of internet movie reviewers. The truth is, it's not bad, it's just dull. I think Chris Stuckman made a competent movie, but it lacked any interesting ideas, and even worse, it lacked tension. And I'm done with horror movies where somebody has to investigate symbols, search through newspapers, and wander through the woods. Let's move on from that. The monster looked cool though. Number 22 on my list, David Cronenberg's The Shrouds.
What's going on?
I can't believe it.
The Shroud sets up many interesting ideas, but draws none of them to a satisfying conclusion. I'm not dumb. Well, maybe I am a little bit. But I do get that that's the point. Not understanding the truth, not knowing who the true villains are, and not knowing if the main character's perception of reality is reliable. I understand that this movie is meant to leave a lot of things unresolved, however I feel like there needs to be a balance struck. The artist needs to appeal to a higher sense of aesthetic, and I don't mean just visually. For a film like this to succeed, I think it needs to transcend the sum of its parts, which I don't think The Shrouds does. This isn't a film I hate, I appreciate what it's going for, it just didn't come together. Now moving from the nah category to the that's fine category. And the number 21 spot is him.
Think of it as a gift from the gods.
But don't listen. So what are you willing to sacrifice?
I'm going to make a controversial statement. I think symbolism is overrated, and no movie proves that better than him. This movie is chock full of the most obvious, uninteresting symbolism. It is soaked in flaccid religious imagery. It also just has to comment on patriotism, capitalism, and exceptionalism. Why? Because it needs to. Because it needs to seem deeper than it actually is. Once you get past all the obvious imagery, there's actually some great visuals in there. I love all the X-ray shots when the brutality ramps up. It feels rooted in football and really gives this movie its own identity. It just seemed too afraid to fully commit to its sports theme and decided to just throw out a bunch of random junk to distract you. Marlon Wayans was really good in it though. At number 20 I have Hard Eyes.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy V-Day!
Get killed, all right? What was...
Why would he say that?
Hard Eyes is a romantic comedy horror film that is neither funny nor scary. This is more of an action-heavy slasher. The Hard Eyes killer comes off as a cross between Ghostface and the original Terminator, but with less personality. I didn't think that the romantic comedy aspect of this film was well realized, and I didn't find either of the main characters to be likable. The dialogue was forced and corny, which is not uncommon for romantic comedies, but I didn't see any chemistry between these two characters. It would have been interesting if they removed the high-action slasher aspect of this movie and made it more of a straightforward rom-com, and keep the slasher elements in the background. Lean more into the romance and sneak in the horror until the two come to a head. But we've gotten a lot of slick action slashers lately, and this one just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Coming in at number 19 is Companion.
The days of you controlling me are over.
Are you breaking up with me?
It's not you. It's me.
Companion is a high-concept thriller about an AI love bot being manipulated into committing murder. There wasn't really much compelling about Companion. It's a movie that doesn't seem to aspire to all that much, and it goes down a fairly predictable path. This movie feels small, but not necessarily in a bad way. It's set in mostly one location, but has a great cast of actors. It's a fine movie while you're watching it, but it's hard not to see how glib and forgettable it is upon further analysis. Number 18 is Strange Harvest. Strange Harvest is a documentary-style found footage film where we follow the investigation of a mysterious serial killer named Mr. Shiny. This movie is well made for what it is. One particular crime scene sticks out, and it seems like they used most of their budget on that scene alone. The quality of the acting is all over the place, and a good amount of the dialogue comes off as corny. It doesn't always hold together as a mockumentary, but it does have its moments. We've now made our way into the alright tier. Sitting in the number 17 spot is Wolfman. I really enjoyed Lee Whannell's Invisible Man that came out a few years ago. That small-scale, science-based thriller really suited the concept. When it was announced that he'd be handling the Wolfman, I was interested in seeing how that would turn out. And well, it was alright. I'm not the biggest Wolfman fan. I could see where big Wolfman fans would not be into this movie, but I didn't think it was all that bad. It just felt too small for the subject. With the recent revitalization of gothic horror with Nosferatu and Frankenstein, we should have gotten a grand and elegant retelling of this classic story. So numbers 15 and 16 are interchangeable for me. They're both fun and fast-paced teen horror movies with a comedic tilt.
If we want to survive, we have to make it until dawn. What is that?
I know Until Dawn was disappointed for many because it bears little resemblance to the game it's named after. As much as I did like that game, I didn't really care that it was different. And I'm always happy to see Peter Stormare, or Stormare, or however you pronounce his Swedish. I think he's Swedish. He's awesome. And Clown in a Cornfield, which is based off of a book, has a similar feel, but I think the characters are a bit more fun. And while both plots are heavily influenced by classic movies, I think that Clown in a Cornfield does a little bit more to make it an interesting film. And also, this is the first time I've seen Will Sasso in a non-comedic role, which I appreciated. So I give it the edge. At number 14, I have The Monkey. I reviewed The Monkey earlier this year, so if you wanted to see my full thoughts on it, go check out that video. We are now in the I liked that tier. My unlucky number 13 horror movie of 2025 is The Carpenter's Son. We get Nick Cage in a Jesus-themed horror film. What more can you want? This one may be a bit too slow for most viewers, but I thought it was an interesting angle to take a religious-based horror movie. Although I thought FKA Twig's acting performance was fine, she does look a little bit out of place in this movie, unless I have my history wrong and there was lip filler in biblical times. This is a solid movie that I give a bronze medal to, and look out for a very unique portrayal of Satan. At number 11, I have VHS Halloween. I'm going to level with you. I fucked up. When I reviewed this film in October, I gave it a silver medal, which now I feel like it's closer to a bronze upon further analysis. My feelings overall didn't change, so you can check out that review of it. It's still relevant. It's just not as strong of a movie as I had originally considered it to be. And we are now officially in the top 10. Are you ready? I'm ready. Scratching its way to the number 10 spot is Black Phone 2. I had mixed feelings about this one, but it was just good enough to get into my number 10 spot. If you want to see my full thoughts, I do have a painted review on this one as well, so go check that out. Number 9 is 28 Years Later.
All the cards in the world!
7, 6, 11, 5, 4, 17, 32 the day before.
I've not been a big fan of the 28 Days Later franchise. I enjoyed the other two previous films, but I don't love them as much as a lot of other horror heads out there do. And honestly, I don't really feel much different about this one. Like the previous movies, there's a nice dramatic storyline where they throw in stupid ideas that kind of undercut it. And I don't really get the point of the different types of rage zombies. It feels something out of a video game. It seems like it lends itself more to a comedy, which they try to squeeze in more comedic elements to this movie that just don't land for me. But I think the dramatic stuff is great. Slices of family drama were effective, and I was really into the father and son dynamic in the earlier parts of this film. And I know I kind of made it sound like I didn't like this movie, but the reason why it's this high on this list is how well it's shot. A lot of care and craft went into the visual design of this film. And also, Ralph Fiennes is great as Dr. Kelson, and I can't wait to see what he gets up to in the next movie. 28 Years Later gets a silver medal. Number 8 is Together. I have a full painted review of Together, so go check that out if you want to hear my thoughts on that in detail. Slaying in at number 7 is Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Don't forget who you are and what you do.
This reimagining of the classic Christmas slasher departs pretty heavily from the original. Like the original film, Billy Chapman's parents are murdered in front of him by a costume Santa. But unlike the original, Rowan Campbell's Billy is guided by a voice in his head who compels him to kill people who he perceives to be evil. I was initially disappointed that they were making this killer a bit more of a vigilante. I've been getting tired of the sympathetic killer or misunderstood outsider type character. But later on in the film, they contextualize what's happening in a supernatural way, and I literally laughed out loud at that moment. I was pleasantly surprised about how out there they were willing to go in a seemingly straightforward slasher movie. Many people are talking about the Nazi party scene online, and I kind of scoffed at it when the scene started. I'm no fan of Nazis. Their presence as a villain in a film often feels like a cheap way to make a character hateable, but that scene in this film is so absurd that it won me over right away. It really goes for it as a modern grindhouse slasher film, and I love it for that. It gets a silver medal. If they decide to continue a new series of Silent Night, Deadly Night films, I'd love to see them go way weirder like they did with the later sequels. Number 6 is Keeper.
What are you?
Oz Perkins is an interesting director, where The Monkey was a fast-paced death buffet, Keeper is the opposite, and despite that, both movies managed to feel wholly his own. The Monkey was fun, but I felt like it was chasing the trend of over-the-top comedy horror films that we've been getting a lot lately. Keeper feels a lot more in line with his aesthetic. The film is filled with a lot of confusion and gaslighting that keeps you guessing until the very end. People who've adapted to fast-paced or more short-form storytelling may not have the patience for this one, but I love a slow-paced chiller, and I think that this film has an interesting enough payoff that it is well worth the build-up. I would have to watch this along with Long Legs, but I think that this may be my favorite Oz Perkins film. As well shot as Long Legs was, I think Keeper is a little bit more visually compelling, but it is a close call though. I give it a silver medal. Making it into the top 5 is The Rule of Jenny Penn.
Hello, Jenny Pin.
Yeah. Good night, Jenny Pin.
If the prospect of Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow battling it out in a retirement home thriller doesn't intrigue you, then we can't be friends. Jeffrey Rush plays a judge who has to live in a retirement home after suffering a stroke, only to find that this retirement home is being terrorized by a psychopath. The residents live in fear under the rule of John Lithgow's doll, Jenny Penn. This movie is a wild ride, and it manages to have a high level of visual appeal despite the setting. John Lithgow is extremely hateable, and Jeffrey Rush is extremely easy to get behind as the only person willing to stand up to his madness. This was an unexpectedly fun film, and I would recommend others to go check it out. It gets a silver medal. In the number 4 spot, I have Sinners. I released a full painted review of Sinners a few months back, so if you want to hear my thoughts and details, go check that out. At number 3 with a bullet is Weapon.
This is where the story really starts.
Zach Cregger's first film, Barbarian, was a standout when it was released in 2022, and I think he easily surpassed that film with Weapons. This is perhaps the most watchable horror film that came out this year. Its pace and structure just make it a breeze to watch. It's one of those movies where if you happen to be in a room where it's playing, you just have to sit down and watch the whole thing. The ensemble cast is great, but for me, the standouts are Julie Garner and Amy Madigan. The latter's performance as Aunt Gladys is incredible. When we are first introduced to Aunt Gladys, we are met with a cartoonishly villainous character. But over the course of the film, we see some real depth. It makes the viewer wonder who this character is and how they came to be, probably the standout horror villain this year. Weapons manages to balance real drama and horror with a little over-the-top action. It gets a gold medal. Reanimating itself into the number 2 spot is Frankenstein. Guillermo del Toro gave all you horny weirdos exactly what you wanted, a sexy monster. But Jacob Elordi is but a morsel in the visual buffet that is this movie. Why do I write shit like that? But Jacob Elordi is but a morsel in the visual buffet that is this movie. Del Toro brings his surreal opulence to this gothic horror classic. Every moment of this film is carefully considering what it's presenting visually. I think it's the most beautifully realized film this year. As a massive fan of gothic horror, it brings me joy that we've gotten such great representations of Frankenstein and Dracula within a year of each other. And yes, Nosferatu is a Dracula adaptation. The only bad thing I can say about this movie is that I wish that the monster was more monstrous. Obviously, there should be a sympathetic component to Dr. Frankenstein's monster, but in this he's entirely innocent. I feel like it does cheapen the story a little bit, but only a little bit. Del Toro's Frankenstein gets a gold medal. Before I reveal my number 1 horror movie of 2025, I'd like to thank you all for stopping by and checking out my videos. This marks my full year of making these, and while I'm not burning up the charts with subscribers and views, I'm having a lot of fun doing this, and I will continue to do so until I am not having fun anymore. I know that with Shelby Oaks, it was looking pretty grim for YouTubers trying to make their way into filmmaking, and with the angry video game nerds and nostalgia critics of the world, past attempts have been rotten. But the Filippo brothers did it with Bring Her Back. I know that their first film, Talk to Me, was well liked, but I never got around to it. A lot of people had been puffing up Bring Her Back around the time of its release, and there was quite a bit of hype behind it, so I felt like I had to see it, and I'll tell you, I was blown away. This is a movie that nails every aspect. It implies a lore and backstory, but it doesn't bog you down in all the details. It keeps the characters as its focus. Our brother and adopted sister characters have a believable relationship with each other, and you buy into the idea of them sticking together through a traumatic experience, while the villain conspires to tear their relationship apart for her own needs. Sora Wong, Billy Barrett, and Sally Hawkins really drive this movie, and how they play off of each other really heightens the drama. And let's not forget about Ollie, who is the subject of my painting. 12-year-old Jonah Wren Phillips is a trooper for having to portray Ollie in this film. The kid had to go through a hell of a lot. While this film isn't as grandiose as Frankenstein, it does stand up on its own visually. It feels so cold, it feels dangerous, it feels tense, and how it's shot plays into that. I don't really want to say too much about this movie because it shouldn't be spoiled for those who haven't seen it. No other film this year has made me feel this same level of despair. In 2025, we've seen over-the-top comedy horror make its big return, and I love that. But Bring Her Back went all in on being deadly serious, and it stands out because of it. Bring Her Back gets my platinum medal, the only movie of 2025 to receive such high esteem. And of course, my opinion is high esteem. Please tell me what you thought on my list. What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? What movies did I miss? Did I miss a great horror movie? What did you think of my painting? I think this may be the best painting I've done for the series so far. Thanks again for tuning in to my first year here on YouTube, and have a happy new year.